Good afternoon. My name is James McFarland, and I'll be joined by Nissa Franklin, and we'd like to welcome you to the Urban League's Workforce Wednesday. Workforce Wednesday is a program that we'll be hosting a couple of times each month, in which we'll be bringing you a presenter and/or information that could assist you in your workforce development. This program is sponsored by Truist Bank and Toyota Tsusho America. Nissa, would you like to say anything before we present our guest?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Nissa Franklin with the Urban League of Lexington. I serve as the Chief Administrative Officer here. Just wanted to let you all know of a few things that we have going on with the Urban League. First, our mission is to assist and ensure that African Americans and the disadvantaged achieve equality. We also work in a variety of fields. First is youth and education, where we have 3 programs running. The first is an academic challenge, which will actually happen this weekend. And with that academic challenge, 3rd through 5th grade and 8th grade students can compete for college scholarships. Some of the participating universities include Eastern, Kentucky University, Morehead State, the Bluegrass Community and Technical College, as well as a financial award from the Urban League. And then we also have our LIFT conference, which just recently concluded. It is a college and career readiness for pre-K through 12th grade students, as well as their adults, caring adults. And then we also have our MAID program, which is a gang and violence prevention program that runs in 13 schools throughout the Fayette County Public School System. And then really quickly, we have our affordable housing, where we have 60 affordable rental properties for low-income families to rent. We do accept Section 8. And then we also have professional development, which is our Urban League Young Professionals. And then workforce development is what you're participating in today with the Workforce Wednesday webinars, as well as fiber optic training. And our next fiber optic training course will be in June, and then another also in September. And then, of course, we advocate for things that affect the communities in which we serve, which are low-income individuals, the disadvantaged, as well as African Americans. So on behalf of the Urban League and our president and CEO, Mr. PG Peoples Sr., we are glad that you are here with us today. And now I'll turn things back over to James.
Thank you, Nissa. And all those programs can be found on the Urban League's social media pages. Now I would like to bring in our guest for today's Workforce Wednesday. Today's guest will be Contessa Montgomery. Contessa is the recruitment and retention specialist at Toyota Tsusho America. And in this role, Contessa monitors, analyzes, interprets people's data, and develop solutions to improve recruitment and retention results for the Toyota Tsusho locations nationwide. Contessa is a graduate from Eastern Kentucky University, where she graduated cum laude with a Bachelor's of Business Administration in Management with a Human Resource concentration. Hey, Contessa.
Hey, James. I am so excited to be hosting this Workforce Wednesday activity. Appreciate Urban League of Lexington Fayette County for inviting me. The topic of my presentation today is something that I'm very passionate about. The content we're going to cover are items that I think that every member of the workforce should understand, regardless of who your employer is, what industry you're working in, whether you're working in the public or private sector. These are themes that are going to carry across and are going to apply to everybody. So we will go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen and provide an introduction. All right. And James, I will let you know when I'm sharing, and if you would just confirm that you can see what I'm looking at here. From beginning. Okay. Can you see?
Hold on 1 second. No, I'm not sure. Let me share it, make sure of your screen. Let's see. Now we're good. We can see what you have up now.
All right, perfect. And I will go ahead and stop my video during the course of the presentation. I would welcome any questions that you have, and I hope everybody takes something from this. So stopping my video. All right, the title of my presentation is Know Your Worth. Again, a topic that I'm very passionate about. During today's presentation, you are going to learn how to calculate the value of your skills in today's market, evaluate what employers are offering in exchange for the services that you provide, and ultimately how to ask for the pay that you deserve. I'm going to provide some free publicly available resources for you to determine what your skills are worth in Lexington, Fayette County. And then I will also provide you with some detailed instructions that you can use for practical applications, so you can determine what your values are. You're going to learn a little bit about the market. You're going to learn how to identify an employer that's a good match for you, and then how to negotiate salary or hourly rate or even benefits for that position. So that's it in a nutshell. We'll go ahead and jump in. Little introduction. I appreciate James for providing the introduction previously. As he mentioned, my name is Contessa Montgomery. I am recruitment and retention specialist for Toyota Tsusho America. I work out of Georgetown, Kentucky, so pretty close to Lexington. There's my professional photo on the left there as a little icebreaker. The story of how this photo came to be, I love it really quickly. I got a Groupon. I was tasked with getting a professional photo based on some activities that I was trying to participate in at the time. I didn't have one. I got a Groupon. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like an electronic coupon for a portrait with a pet. I did not think that I actually had to bring the pet, but I did. So I brought Groot with me. That's Groot, short for Grootifer, my cat, remote work coworker, and loyal companion. Some things that I like are Microsoft Excel. I'm a hugely analytical person. Dessert, I've often been known to order dessert before the entree when I go out for dinner. I'm in cats, of course. Some things that I don't like, small talk. Not a huge fan. I like to kind of jump right into the conversation. Bears, there's something about an animal that can run and swim and climb that is just unnerving to me. And then uneven lists, again, very analytical person. So moving on, content of the presentation. First major topic that we're going to be going over today is know the market. So this isn't, we're not going to go into super depth on economics and market conditions, but I do want you to understand the role that you play in the market, your importance to the success of the company that you work for, and all the different places that you add value and you create positive business outcomes, again, for the company that you work for. So some basic things to understand about the market and market conditions. You're probably already aware of at this point in your life. You probably had plenty of experiences that demonstrated this, but the market is influenced and made up of demand from consumers for different products and services. And then it's the company's job to respond or take advantage of that demand from consumers and supply those needed products and services. And it's the company's responsibility, the responsibility of the business, to develop a business process that includes inputs, the process itself, and then ultimately creating the outputs. And that's kind of where you come in. So in addition to being a consumer yourself and a member of the greater market, you are also part of the input into the process that creates those products and services and creates profit for the company and a paycheck for you. So a company's inputs include lots of different things, materials and equipment. They will input into their process to create their products and services, but they also need you. They need employees, good employees, to invest time and labor, and of course their knowledge and skills and perspective in order to make the company successful, in order to run that process and create, again, those products and services for the customers, the supply that they need in order to respond to that demand. So the company, it will not be successful without you. But in return, you do expect something back from the company or the employer that you work for. You expect fair compensation, you expect competitive benefits, and that's what you deserve. You should ask for what you deserve. And during this presentation, we're going to kind of go into depth about that. So in exchange for your value-added services, including the fruits of your mind, your knowledge, skills, and your perspective, and your body, your time, and your labor that you're investing into the company, the employer must provide in exchange resources that you need, your paycheck, so you can get other things that you need, food, shelter, entertainment, etc. So it's a trade. It's an interdependent relationship. The company is not going to do well without you. And you wouldn't work for the company unless you were getting something in exchange. So moving on from that topic, got another little illustration for you just to hit home the points from the previous slide. The employers need your services to be successful. And you wouldn't work for the company unless you needed their resources. Got to get that paycheck. But I want to empower you to negotiate the terms of the trade with your employer in a mutually beneficial agreement. Right now, it's an employee's market. Employers are trying to catch up and respond to the needs of employees. Lots of things are changing with COVID, lots of other influences. But there has never been a better time to ask for what you deserve. You could be a current job seeker looking at different offers from an employer, from different companies, evaluating whether or not they might be a good fit for you. Or you could be currently employed. And maybe this is the time that you should kind of take a look at your pay, at your compensation, your benefits, and see if the company you're working for is still competitive. Markets changed, so the company has to change right along with it in order to retain you, the employee that they need. So as I mentioned before, market factors are going to have an influence on lots of different things. Supply and demand for your services will impact their market value. So depending on market demands and the, for example, quantity of folks in the same area that you're in with the same skill sets, the value of your services is going to go up and down, inflation, deflation, depending on, again, what's going on with the market. But whatever the case is with the market, whatever the market situation, got to remember that the company needs you, and you need to empower yourself, take the initiative to ask for a competitive pay and competitive benefits in exchange for your services. So that theme is going to kind of carry through this entire presentation. I'm not going to harp on economics any longer. We'll go ahead to the next slide. So this is probably my favorite slide in the presentation. It's focused on employee diversity. And I know hopefully this topic has come up for you before, but I just want you to know, I want to really hit home that employee diversity equals company profitability. A diverse candidate's perspective adds value to the services that they provide. A little data for you from McKinsey's 2019 Diversity Wins Report. Companies in the top quartile of gender diversity on executive teams were 25% more likely to experience above average profitability than companies in the bottom quartile. Companies with more than 30% women executives were more likely to outperform companies with fewer women executives. And also companies that led in ethnic and cultural diversity had 36% more profitability than companies without that diversity. So what that means for you is your perspective as a diverse candidate adds value. Your services as a diverse candidate are probably worth more than the services provided by other candidates who don't have that diverse perspective. So you've got to factor that in whenever you're valuing yourself and determining what you should be paid in the market that we're in as a diverse candidate. You can ask for more because your diverse perspective adds value to the services, again, that you provide and ultimately makes the company more profitable. Something else that I want to mention is diverse candidates are in high demand and limited supply in Kentucky. I'm going to show you some illustrations, some data that I pulled directly from the last census report, U.S. Census report for for the United States versus Kentucky. I know that that might be a little small. I'll try to get a little closer here. But if you compare Kentucky's diversity proportions of our population to that of the United States, you will see that there are lots of groups in Kentucky of different populations that are underrepresented in Kentucky versus the United States. And if you went even further out and considered, the diversity globally, we would probably also be behind in terms of that as well. So why this is important is that if we're talking just strictly the success of a business and the ability of a business to anticipate the needs of their customers, all different customers, not just customers of a specific demographic, a company needs lots of different perspectives. They need everybody to weigh in, everybody to have a seat at the table. And if the business just supports a city, maybe they could match the demographics of that city alone. But most businesses, they are supporting customers, statewide, nationwide, globally. And so it's more important than ever to make sure that there are all different perspectives present and that everybody has a chance to weigh in order to make the company more flexible, in order to allow the company to make informed decisions, and again, ultimately, for the company to be more profitable. So again, census data, United States versus Kentucky, just to go into a little bit more in depth. In the United States, 13.4% of the population, based on the last census report, identified as Black or African American. Compare that to demographics in Kentucky, where only 8.5% of the population identifies as Black or African American alone. Some other metrics or some other areas of population demographics where Kentucky falls short in comparison to the United States, and again, globally, are folks who identify as 2 or more races or Hispanic or Latino. 2% in Kentucky for 2 or more races, 2.8% in the United States. Hispanic or Latino, 3.9% in Kentucky, but 18.5% in the United States as a whole. So diverse candidates are in lower supply in Kentucky, but in very high demand, which again makes your skills, your services that you provide more valuable. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. We'll move on to the next topic. We're going to go into knowing your values, which is the first step in order for you to determine, which type of employer is right for you. Because there are lots of employers out there, many to choose from, all different jobs, different companies with different cultures. But before you entertain offers from employers, you will need to decide what you value as an employee and as a person. You will need to know what your requirements are, what your non-negotiables are before you take your offer out there and try to find a good match company. So we're going to go into this in much greater detail, but in order to kind of determine what you value as a person in your personal and your professional life, you've got to think about what value you place on time versus money. Got to answer that question. And in order to help you answer that question, I've broken down money versus time a few different ways, just to compare and contrast them. And before we jump into that, I just want to kind of temper this topic a little bit and make sure that everybody understands there's not a right or wrong answer to these questions. Everybody's got different goals, they got different life situations and different needs in terms of money versus time and how they invest those things. And it's going to be up to you to manage your time and money. Both can be managed. And it'll be up to you, I want to empower you to make decisions that are going to be right for you and your family. And again, your life situation that you are currently in. And what you value now, You might have to reevaluate later on. Things change. So this is going to shift over time. You're going to manage it, and you're going to find that balance. You may have already found it. You may already know the answers to these questions, but we're going to run through them. So ask yourself the question, what value do you place on time versus money? Comparing and contrasting with money, you can exchange money for food, shelter, clothing, gifts, entertainment, investments, and other goals you have for your life. With time, you can invest time in exchange for relationships, knowledge, experience. And you're a human, you're not a robot, so you need rest. You need to recuperate physically, mentally, and emotionally. We got to have time for ourselves. Also, with money, once you spend it, you can always get more. There's always going to be more money. But with time, once you spend it, you can't get back what you spent. We get what we get, we're all humans. And then with money, the value varies over time. You got inflation, deflation, all that fun market stuff. But with time, the value is constant. And with money, money's unlimited. But your time, again, it's limited. Another human component, you get what you get. But we can take care of ourselves. We can manage our time and our money, and we can make our life what we want it to be. But a big component of our life is, at this time, depending on your life circumstances, it's going to be the employer you work for. So we spend a lot of time at work. And then we have lots of obligations at home too, most of us. And so again, we're going to have to find that balance and identify an employer who's a good match for us and our goals and our values. Their values have to match ours. So moving on to that, you got to ask the same questions of the employer that you ask of yourself, and make sure that your values and the company's values are a good match for each other so that it's a good long-term fit. So some things to think about when you're considering a company, or even if you're currently gainfully employed. Some things to ask a current employer or consider about your current employer are, what value does your employer place on time versus money? You're often going to find, you're going to figure this out from the policies that the company subscribes to and enforces, the company's culture. There are going to be clues. How much of your time is your employer requiring you to provide? This is a work-life balance thing. You need work-life balance. Again, depending on your life circumstances, you might need more now, more later. You'll have to find the right fit. And how much money is your employer offering in exchange for your time? This is going to be market-based. It's going to change as well. Life is an ever changing and evolving thing, isn't it? What works now might not work later. And what you're paid now, with inflation, cost of living changes, there's been a lot of that recently. Even if your employer, if you're currently employed, if their original offer was great, they've got to make sure that they stay up to date in order to continuously be competitive. So it's worth checking into whether you are considering an offer from a prospective employer as a job seeker, or again, you're currently gainfully employed and you just want to evaluate whether or not your employer is still competitive. So take into consideration all these different things, understand your values, consider the company's values, and it's up to you. You've got to empower yourself. You've got to take the lead on finding a match and choosing an employer, again, whose values match yours. So,
Contessa, I just had sorry to interrupt, but I had a question that just came in.
Yeah.
It was asking, what do you do if your employee doesn't meet, if your employer meets your request in a negative way? If, let's say
so something, I know it's easy to say this and not as black and white in practice, but I will tell you that An employer who doesn't value input from their employees, regardless of the topic, whether it's an uncomfortable topic, like money can be sometimes or not, if they don't take the time to listen and consider, what you're saying, understand, where you're coming from, then it might not be a good place to work. It sounds like not a great environment to work in and not a great culture for you. That wouldn't be a good culture for me. You should be able to, most companies have open door policies. You should be able to talk about anything. And if the response is negative, the best you can do is manage that conversation the best that you can, make it clear that that you're just trying to stay informed. You're doing your part as an employee, doing your own research as a member of the workforce, and you just wanted to bring this issue to their attention. If they kind of meet that negatively, if it were me, I might try again. I might go a level up. But, depending on the level of negativity and exactly what's going on, there are lots of different answers to that question. But ultimately, again, if that's the culture, that's not one you want to be in. You should be able to ask any questions and be able to talk through those questions with your boss, with your employer, regardless of the situation.
Okay, there's a couple other questions coming in. I'll just save them to the end and we'll have time to chat after that, but I'll save them to the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Understood.
Alrighty.
So finding a match, this is where the practical applications are going to come in. I just want to take this time to let everybody know that I'm going to make sure that I share this PowerPoint presentation with James and Anissa. Afterwards, you guys can look at these later on. A lot of the items that we're going to cover, you can implement today. So I want you to have access to them. But in order to find a match, you got to take a few steps. First thing you're going to do is ask questions. Again, whether you are a job seeker and you're asking questions of a prospective employer, or you're currently gainfully employed, you can still ask these questions if you don't know the answers. And it will help you determine if that employer is really a good match for you, if that company is a good match for you. After that, you're going to do your research. I'm going to take you through exactly what you need in order to do that, including a demo of a free publicly available resource for that. I think this video will be available to you later as well from Urban League. And after you do your research and you find out what the market is really paying for folks with your skill set, then you're going to go forth confidently and you're going to ask for the pay that you deserve. You've done your research. You can't necessarily take your company's word for it that they're compensating you in a competitive way in comparison to others in the same market. So jumping right in, first thing you're going to do in order to determine if your employer's values match yours or prospective employer you're going to ask those questions. So I want to take this opportunity to let you guys know that it's okay to ask about pay. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. That question that came up earlier, I feel like is relevant to this topic as well about, what do you do if your employer responds negatively when you try to kind of bring up what your pay is or what your benefits are and whether or not, those that package is still competitive or not. Again, I just want to stress that recruiters and employers by this point, they should understand that this is an important component of the proposition, the offer from the employer. The pay is a huge important component. It's probably the single greatest factor that people consider whenever they're considering a job opportunity. They work in order to get the paycheck, and they take the paycheck and they pursue other goals that they have in their life. So if you have resistance from an employer, prospective employer, current employer, or a recruiter, I'm a recruiter, So I can tell you this firsthand. We're used to these questions. And if the employer is not used to these questions, especially if they're some prospect that you're considering to work for as a job seeker, that's a red flag. That's a major red flag. You want to, you need to understand, you have to understand what the employer is offering you, what the company's about. And the company should want you to understand what they're about their culture and their policies, so that it's a good match in the end. And they're happy with you and you're happy with them. And it's a long and successful relationship. As a recruiter, most job offers that I issue, I'll definitely say, especially for professional positions, I get a counter offer. A lot of people, they will ask for more pay, or they'll ask for an adjustment to the benefits. And there is nothing wrong with asking. Again, if you're met with some negative response, that's a red flag and something you should definitely consider before you move forward with that company. But jumping into these questions, it's okay to ask about pay. On the left side of this little chart at the bottom here, under Ask Questions, there are questions about non-monetary types of things that you need to know about the company, like the culture and the benefits. And on the right side, we're going to go through some questions that are specifically about pay. I think that you should know the answers to all of these questions. So if you're currently employed and you don't know the answers to these questions, I'd seek them out. If you're a job seeker considering employment with a certain company and you've received that offer, I'd make sure you know the answers to these questions before you move forward. So what does the work schedule look like? Very important question. Is overtime required? If so, how much and how often? What types of paid time off are provided? This is your personal time, your sick time. This is, they're all different types of time that companies will provide, your vacation time. They call them different things, but you need to know that you have some time off paid. Are there paid holidays? If so, what are they? Are those the holidays that are important to you and your family? Do you offer work schedule flexibility? Work schedule flexibility is another one of those super important work-life balance items. So this would mean, if they did offer work schedule flexibility, that would mean that if you had to take your sick kid to the doctor, so you had to leave a little early from work, for example, to go take care of that, then you wouldn't be penalized for it. That's what you want. You need that work-life balance. Again, depending on your situation. Good question to ask. Another question, work-life balance related, is remote work an option, including a hybrid schedule? Tons of employers are shifting to remote work now. A lot of them are offering hybrid schedules, which means you work part at home and part in the office. But then there are lots of jobs out there where, they'll exclusively allow in-office work. All of your work time has to be performed on site. So this is a good question to throw out. Hybrid or remote work schedules have been really great for a lot of different groups, especially women who have busy family lives. So definitely something that I would encourage you to ask. Another big question, can I review the employee handbook? This is where all their policies are housed. This is where they clarify what their stance is in terms of work-life balance, the value that they place on time versus money. Those policies are going to be in there. Perfectly okay to ask for that. And again, if the employer wants to prevent you from seeing that for some reason, there's no reason, no good reason that I know about for an employer to prevent that from happening. So that's a red flag. You might not want to consider working for an employer that won't let you see what their policies are, what's allowed and what's not allowed. Some monetary related questions about money that are really great to ask are there bonus opportunities? If so, how often? Lots of companies have bonuses that are dependent on company performance or other things. how often are cost of living adjustments applied? So that is often companies, every year they'll give you a pay bump to keep up with inflation. But some companies, they don't have a schedule for that. You've got to feel pretty confident that your company is going to kind of keep up with the market. That if the cost of everything around you goes up, that your pay is going to go up proportionally so that you can keep up. Are merit pay increases available? Is another great question. Merit pay increases are based on your individual performance. So in addition to just cost of living adjustments and bonus opportunities, this is another great question to ask. And if they do offer merit pay increases, you got to know how often and what the criteria are to qualify. You've got to understand what is needed from you in order to take that next step and get that pay bump. And you can, again, ask that ahead of time, or you can ask that now if you're currently employed and you don't know the answer. A couple of other items to consider. These aren't monetary, but are there promotion and advancement opportunities available? If that's something, not everybody wants to be the boss, but if that's something that you want, you might as well ask to make sure that the company offers that and it's a good fit for you. And lastly, super important question, are development and training opportunities available? So this would mean, you keeping up with what's going on, you staying abreast of changes, regardless of what line of work you're in. You need to make sure that the company is going to keep developing you as an employee and providing the training you need to stay on top, because you might not always be with that employer and you don't want to be behind if you ever leave. So again, I'm going to provide this presentation to ULL. If you guys want these questions, you can reference them there. And I hope you find those useful. So now we've asked questions and we've kind of addressed these first two topics. What value does your employer place on time versus money? How much of your time is your employer requiring you to provide? Trying to ensure the culture is the right fit and the work-life balance is there. Next, we're going to do our research. Now it's time to address that next question related to how much money the employer is offering in exchange for your time, for the services that you provide. Again, this is market-based, so we've got to use some resources that are out there. These different websites that have done studies that keep up with the market and change as the market's changing, so that we can get a good estimate of the market value of our skills and your perspective as well. That's not factored in, that'll have to be separate, but don't forget that. That's value added. So some publicly available resources that are free that I would recommend include salary.com, payscale.com, salaryexpert.com, and indeed.com. I have them listed there in order, highest to lowest of my personal preference. I've used all of them. Salary.com I find particularly useful, but when you're doing this on your own, and we're going to do a demo of the salary.com form. I'm going to do it in real time here for you so that you understand how easy it is. But regardless of which one you use on the beginner side, they are all in the same format, meaning that it's just an online form. If you're pretty comfortable with just using the internet, typing in information into like a super quick form, that's going to be easy for you. You should be able to do that. You should handle it fine. And again, I'll demonstrate it for you. For those of you who are a little less comfortable with the internet and filling out online forms. For those of you who are very comfortable with doing research online, using the internet, I would encourage you to also take advantage of the advanced resources that are listed on the right. So these are Bureau of Labor Statistics resources here. I use them all the time. Sometimes they're a little out of date, but they're usually pretty close. the Bureau of Labor Statistics does studies pretty frequently. And so they're pretty reliable. And you can really dig deep into, location and the industry that you're in and the type of job that you're doing in order to kind of pinpoint exactly what others are paying in the same area for the same services. So that's the advanced side. Beginner side is going to work perfectly fine though. And again, we'll do that demo of salary.com a little later with a random job title. So use these publicly available resources to estimate the market value of your skills and add on the value of that perspective. On separate thought, same topic, is you've got to also consider the value of the benefits and do your research to determine whether or not the benefits you're being offered for either a new employer that you're considering as a job seeker or even your current employer. There are a few publicly available free resources out there. Some of the same sources as we used to estimate pay, including salary.com on the beginner side, and then the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the advanced side. A lot of great information out there. So a little bit more about benefits. I just want you to understand what benefits are worth, what they really are worth, and for you to have a point of comparison whenever you're looking at your own benefits. So benefits they include things like paid time off, vacation time, holiday time, sick time, personal time, health, dental, and vision benefits, different types of insurance, life insurance, short and long-term disability, give you peace of mind, retirement benefits or savings accounts. Those all have, they come at a cost to the company, and they to get some of those same benefits. And when you're sick, you can go to the doctor and you won't have to pay as much. So there are, it does save you money when your employer offers these benefits, and your employer, if they're competitive, they're going to invest a pretty good amount into your benefits package, make sure it's competitive, and attract you as an employee. So little graph to the right there from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, of course, that kind of shows based on different types of industries what the average employer is going to provide in terms of wages and salaries versus benefits. So wages and salaries, we're going to focus on the private industry here since that's where most of us are probably working. Wages and salaries, you add that together with the benefits value, and then you get your total compensation package in the dark blue. So just an example, food for thought for you for the future whenever you're making these decisions and considering your situation with the package that your employer offers, is say you have an employer that offers $30 an hour. So they're up here, but they offer maybe $5 per hour worth of benefits, not so great benefits. So you're up here and you're there, but the total is going to be what somewhere like here, we'll say. If you compare that to an employer that offers maybe a really great benefits package, say it's worth let's say $20 an hour, but their pay maybe is not quite as competitive as the other. We'll keep it where it is here. We'll call that 27. Then that employer is going to offer a higher total compensation package than the other, even though the other offered a higher wage. So depending on your values and what's going on in your life, this is another one of those things that you're going to have to make the best decision for you. Maybe you don't value the benefits so much right now. Maybe you will later. Maybe you never will. But do take that into consideration and make sure that you are at least being provided a competitive package for the market that you're in. You don't want them to lowball you. You want to at least get a decent benefits package on top of pretty good pay. So that's what's just for consideration. Just want to make you aware of that in case you didn't already know. And then aside from the benefits, you've got to also consider perks, which are a few examples of some perks are down here. Perks and other considerations. Employee assistance programs or benefits or perks that employers often provide, helps you out with different things. Educational assistance and tuition reimbursement, that's something that's important to a lot of people right now. Consider whether or not your employer offers that. And then going back to those learning, development, and promotion and advancement opportunities. Another big item that you should consider, keep in mind whenever you're considering, again, whether an employer is a good match for you. But a good benefits package looks like this. It's on the high end, it's going to add value of $20 per hour. On the low end, it's going to add value of $10 per hour. Within that range, could be outside of that, depending on the employer. Make sure that they're in the middle at least, when you're considering them and the package that they offer and what that offer is worth. All right. Moving into that demo that I promised of the salary.com calculator for what you should be making, what the market is currently offering for your skill set. I'm going to show you how easy it is. Probably going to see my million tabs. Oh no. All right. Let me pull that off. There we go. All right, great. So this is where you go. There are lots of ads. It is a free website. I don't endorse any of these things necessarily, just so you know. But this is where we're at here. The link that I provided will take you exactly here. So this is a salary wizard offered by salary.com. You'll essentially start by entering your job title. And you may have to finagle it a little bit. Use the job title that you think best matches the job that you're doing. Different companies, they love to have their own titles for everything. But we're going to enter administrative assistant. They're going to have lots of different versions of that in their database. We're going to say that we are a level 2 administrative assistant. Start researching. And then it's going to let us see job descriptions, little summary for all different types of administrative assistants. You can get function specific. We're going to choose the one that matches us best. We're going to read that, think to ourselves, oh, okay, that sounds like me and the work that I do. And then we're going to view the salary. So we're going to stick with administrative assistant 2. We think that these responsibilities sound like what we're doing or what we want to do if we're a candidate. Now we're going to wait, look at some ads. So it brings us here and it says, this is the national average. We don't want to just look at the national average. We want to see what's going on in Lexington. So we're going to go to the top here. There's a couple different places you can do this, but I always go to the top, go to United States, and then we're going to change that city. I'm going to go to Kentucky, and then we're going to go to Lexington or one of these other places if you're closer to those places. All right, and now we've got a little bit more specific estimate for the area that we're in. There's some information above. Range typically falls between 41.8 and 52.6. Education's a factor. You can actually go down here and enter number of years of experience and education and things like that that should factor in, to the compensation that you receive. But the median is the midpoint. So that's what the majority of folks are going to make on average. On the low end, if an employer is not as competitive, they're going to make something around there or there. If the employer is more competitive and offering a little bit more than others, then these numbers kind of come into that. But in addition to that, You can also look at salary and bonus. So that will add a little bit more to that number probably for the companies that do offer bonuses. To look at total monetary compensation. And you can also look at benefits. See what in this area companies are usually offering, what the cost is to them. And whenever you receive an offer, you can kind of look, or whenever you can just look at what you're currently receiving if you're employed, to see if things are matching up, if your employer looks competitive in comparison kind of to the average for the area and the market that you're in. So that's the demo. Super easy. What did we do? We took like 3 steps, and then we got a pretty good idea of what the market was offering in exchange for our skills and administrative assistant too. And again, remember, you should bump that up a bit if you're a diverse candidate, and you can bring that perspective with you because that perspective is more profitable to the company. That's value added. So I'm gonna get out of there, go back to the presentation. And we are on the last step, guys, last leg of our journey in finding a match, good fit employer for us and the services that we provide. We're gonna go forth confidently. We've asked questions, we've done our research. We can move forward and feel confident about the decisions that we make. During salary negotiations, another uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, but they happen more frequently now than they used to. As a recruiter, even during the last few years, people definitely will ask for what they want more often, but then there's a huge subsection of folks that don't. Want to let you know it's perfectly okay to negotiate salary. It's okay to negotiate benefits. Recruiters should expect that. So some do's and don'ts when you're negotiating salary include: do ask for time to review the offer with family. As a recruiter, I can tell you, we often will put a candidate on the spot, to try to get an immediate answer, an immediate response. And we're hoping for yeses to the offers that we issue. So we'll do it in person or on the phone. But as a candidate, you're going to want to move away from that. Don't negotiate salary via phone or in person. Try to move it to email if you can. Thank them for the offer when they issue it to you over the phone or in person, but say, hey, I need some time to review this offer. I need to talk through it with my family. Need a little time. They should respect that. If they don't, again, that's another red flag. You take the time, you go back, compare the offer to what your expectations are, to the research that you've done. Think about all the questions you asked and factor in those other things that you think are important, that are part of the total package that the employer can provide. And then when you're ready, send an email in response to the offer, including the following items. You're going to want to start out by thanking them for the offer, confirm your interest in the job, comment positively on some non-monetary component of the job offer. You want them to know that you're happy with it. But then again, you're going to come in and you're going to let them know what your reservations are, if you have any. You're going to ask if the salary is flexible, and ask for the salary you deserve. You've done your research. You know what the market is offering, and you are prepared to defend it. You can let them know, I've done my research. I know that there are, in this industry that we're in and the market we're in, my skills are worth this. So you're prepared to defend it, but also something else to keep in mind, that conversation can go one way or the other. They might say no. And if they do say no, depending on your life circumstances, I want you to be prepared to walk away from an offer that undervalues you. But don't give up and keep looking. You're going to find the right fit employer. It just might not have been that one. So remember your worth. Take these steps, ask those questions, do your research, go forth confidently. Because again, you have worth, you have value. It's a candidate's market right now, especially diverse candidates who has much more to offer in terms of perspective. And I've got one last thing I'm going to leave you with. There's an old watch parable that I love. It's just a little story. will just take a minute, but I think it really hits home some of the points that we've gone over during this presentation. I'm going to kind of jump into it. So the old watch parable: before he died, a father said to his son, "Here is a watch your grandfather gave me. It is almost 200 years old. Before I give it to you, go to the jewelry store in the city, tell them I want to sell it, and see how much they offer you for it." The son went to the jewelry store. He came back and told his father they offered $200 because it is so old. The father said, "Well, try the pawn shop." The son went to the pawn shop, came back to his father and said the pawn shop only offered $20 because it's a pretty old watch. The father asked his son to go to the museum and show them the watch. The son quietly questioned his father's judgment, but still he went to the museum. He asked the curator how much he would give him for the watch, and the curator offered $200,000 for this very rare piece, which they wanted to include in their precious antiques collection. The father responded, "I wanted to show you that the right place will value you in the right way. Don't find yourself in the wrong place and get angry because you are not valued. And never stay in a place where someone doesn't see your value or you don't feel appreciated. If you don't know your value, you will always settle for far less than you deserve. So make sure you do your research." Moral of the story: know your worth. Don't settle for anything less than what you deserve. And that is the end of my presentation. I would love to take any questions you may have at this time. Hope it was helpful.
Oh, Contessa, it was very helpful. And we may have to ask you back to answer a couple of these questions because there's a couple of them that wrote in. But one of the questions that was asked, let's say you're at a place and you want to change, or you want it to, or influence a company's value, you want to change their value or influence what they're doing. What's the best approach to take in doing that, especially if you want to take a leadership portion in doing that, a leadership role in doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, you got to have some soft skills. There are, in my role, and based on my experiences working with other folks who disagreed with maybe something the company was doing or had an idea that they wanted to bring up. Generally speaking, as long as you take a soft approach and you kind of understand your audience, the person that you're talking to, how they best, they will, what to do in order to approach them, the best approach to take. So you'll want to do that first and kind of understand the audience there. But again, a good company is going to be adaptable, and it's going to listen to its employees regardless of who the employee is, what stage they're in their career, what level they are, and will investigate those concerns, again, regardless of what they are. If your approach doesn't work, again, you get a negative response or no response at all, I don't think that there's anything wrong with being persistent. With coming back, bringing more data with you, bringing more proof that what you want to change is the right thing to change. And then again, you really find out who your employer is, who your boss is, and how they value you. They need to value your opinion as well, just as much as they need to value the services that you provide.
Okay. And the last question, because we're about to run out of time, the last question I wanted to ask you, there's several other questions. Let's say you're already working for you're already working at a location and you ask for a raise. Is there a percentage that you would want to start with?
Well, so negotiation, I could make a whole presentation out of negotiation. There's an art to it. You will want to start a little higher than what you want to land. I'll tell you that, and then kind of, negotiate down, show that you're flexible to get down to the point that you want to be. I actually do have some materials that include a percentage. I think that a good rule of thumb is to go like a couple, $2 or $3 grand higher, honestly, if we're talking about annual salary. And then, bring your information with you, bring your research with you, make your point. Explain the value that you've added to the company and all the things that you've done to make it more profitable. And then show that you're flexible again backing off a little bit and taking a little less, but really you're landing where you wanted to be. That's my best. But I have some materials. I'll send those over in case James, you want to share those out.
Well, great. We're about out of time, but again, thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. We got a lot of good information. And if you have time, again, I might invite you back to see if we can answer some of these other questions, because most of these other questions deal with if you're already working at a location. What's the best?
Yeah, and really quickly, so sorry, I'm going to throw in my shameless recruiting pitch. Toyota Tsusho America is hiring. We want to connect with you folks at Urban League of Lexington Fayette County. We know who you are. We know you're entrepreneurs. You are IT folks, technicians. You are in all different industries, but we need leadership. We need more diverse leadership at Toyota Tsusho America. And we need talent, and you guys got it. So we have created an external career site just for Urban League of Lexington Fayette County. We've already posted some jobs there, and these are jobs that we're specifically interested in Urban League candidates for. And we guarantee interviews to Urban League candidates that meet all of our requirements for the job, the eligibility requirements. So hope you check that out. It's going to be on Urban League's website. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any more questions. I'll provide my contact details.
All right. Again, that job listing will be posted on the Urban League's website, so you can go there. Give us a day to get it up. Probably tomorrow those jobs will be there. I'm sure they'll be there sooner, but tomorrow will be a good day to check to make sure they're there. Well, with that, again, thank you for your presentation, and we'll hope to talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.